Mobile data, man. It's going to get even choppy. Hey, welcome everybody to With Thunderous Applause, a podcast where two friends get together to discuss the events and ideas that will shape our uncertain future, and in many ways aren't even shaping it, they're just characteristic of it.
Yeah.
I've said for a long time we need to retool the intro. I
Related
apologize,
to
I'm a little
the
bit
future.
robot. What's that?
Yeah, things that are related to the future in intricate ways.
Exactly. They're characteristic of, right? We talk about a lot of shit that's just like, yeah, that fits within the broader narrative. And that's the thing, like the scientific method is never about like proving the statement, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's about disproving it. Like it can be easily disproved, and then also you can using it as an analytical lens, like how does this stuff fit within that? If this is actually the rule, like you don't have to find that, you can find other things that verify, right? Like gravity, right, is verified not by necessarily measuring the actual forces between things, but just observing that everything fucking falls, and that like in a telescope, like light is being stretched out,
Right,
or however it works,
Yeah, it's just further and further evidence lessening the chance of it being something else until you eventually get a pretty good idea of what, at the very least, what something isn't.
And then, yeah, exactly. And then you're like, and if this is proven to be incorrect, you're going to have like lots and lots of jaws on floors.
Oh, yeah, and usually met with hesitation. I mean, always met with hesitation, but it's
probably
how hesitant, really. Oh, yeah,
Sorry.
I mean, it's a matter of like how hesitant it is. If it's a minor thing, it's like, okay, yeah, I mean, that could be reasonable. But if you were to come up and be like, Einstein was wrong, Newton was wrong, gravity's like this, it's like, okay, you got to have some stellar evidence, son. Bring it.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you do, then you might upend everything and completely change the way we do stuff.
Yeah. And really, more likely, it's going to be like we found some kind of mechanism that further explains gravity. Like gravity's not necessarily disproven, but it isn't a fundamental law of nature. It's actually representative of fundamental law of nature, like how like subatomic particles interact, or some shit like that. And that's going to be the innovation. Yeah, go ahead.
Further and further confining what things are.
Mm-hmm.
So like, yeah, we're pretty sure it's like that.
Getting closer to fucking string theory, right? Or theory of everything, or whatever.
Whatever the ground truth ends out to be. It's probably that we're all in a simulation, and if we look too close, we'll see the code, and then they'll,
I know.
And then they'll read it for us. I always thought it's funny that people think that, like, oh, if we ever figured out that we're in a simulation, like they delete us, and it's like, no, it's a simulation. They go in and they just erase that memory forever. Yeah, it was there. It never happened, and then the simulation carries on. Like, do the Sims know that you exist? And even if they did, could they do anything about it? And couldn't you just go in and be like, don't remember that? Okay, there we go. Like, that's what it would be like. I watched a great Joe Rogan, where he's like, yeah, but I'd know because, like, things are real. And he, like, taps on the table. It's like, you're in your element when it comes to, like, fighting and hunting and stuff like that. But maybe just trust the guy who's over there telling you that, a simulation could be possible and you would never know the difference.
Yeah. I do appreciate that kind of, like, it's not pushback in the way that's like, you're fucking insane. It's pushback in the way of like, that doesn't really make sense to me. Like, the burden is on you it's explained to me like I'm 5.
Yeah.
Like, Joe Rogan just needs to spend more time. Joe Rogan is basically fucking a subreddit.
Yeah.
Jesus fucking Christ. All right, we got an interesting show for you today. We skipped Thursday. We were actually in person. The intent was actually to play some Munchkin with cameras on us, play a board game. but the logistics of that proved to be a little more difficult.
It was daunting.
It was a daunting role. That's of 4 purple. You had a couple setbacks,
Yep.
including edibles and fucking beer.
Yeah.
So you rolled 2 setbacks with your 4 purple. And we didn't provide any boost. In fact, we provided setbacks. Like, you got a setback for having distractions.
Yeah. And just the game being way harder than it needed to be.
Right. So we didn't broadcast on Thursday. So we shifted our special 40th episode of Shooting the Poodoo.
What?
Not 40th episode of the podcast. Because we're at like 75.
Well, let's see.
We got to do a big 100th anniversary.
We're pretty far up there. We've got, where's the count? Dashboard. 11 subscribers. I think we're over 100 videos now. I don't see where it is, but yeah, I know we're up there. Content. Let's see.
Anyway,
6 shorts. Yeah, 6 shorts and fucking, let's see, 109 regular videos. Some of those are private, so it's probably right around 100.
We're about our 100th episode.
Yeah, we might be past it, actually. We might have forgot.
Yeah, I keep getting emails from fucking YouTube that's like,
congratulations.
hey, you need to have your short strategy. Like, set up your strategy for, like, marketing yourself via shorts. And you're like, I watched the shit out of some shorts.
Yep.
But, like, that's not what we're oriented to drink beers and bullshit about important things.
I have vodka. I totally forgot.
You do. Are you sober?
Yeah. I could fix that. Wait, help
I'm
me
crying on the inside.
Maybe I can get my wonderful wife to help me with it. Anyway, so yeah, over the weekend it was super, or like after that for me it was super busy. You had to drive a bunch. If I can, I went to what?
No, please.
Oh, okay. And then
you did D&D.
Yeah. Saturday we did a whole bunch of stuff. Did D&D from like 5 to 8, and then of course it's all these young kids that are like, we're like 23. Let's all go out to like 3 bars. It's like, you motherfuckers, why can't we just stay at one? We always end up at the same place anyways. But
the bar you finish your night at and spend like 3 hours at the end of your night after you visited 3 other bars. That's the place you just start and stay.
Yeah.
That was the beauty of Browns. You never came to visit me in Delaware, did you? You came to visit me in New Orleans or in Biloxi.
Yeah, I don't think I ever did.
I don't think you ever did, because I lived a couple blocks from a place called Brown's.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's called the Wyoming Tavern, a.k.a. Brown's, like Brown's Wyoming Tavern. And it was just like, it was one of the criteria for rentals, right? Like, we're like, must have gas stove.
Yeah.
Right. Must be a single family detached with like a yard big enough for a garden. Right. And must be within like walking distance of a bar. And we found a pretty decent spot. It wasn't perfect by any measure, but it was pretty good. And Brown's was the best because that was the place. And fucking by myself at 3:00 in the afternoon after I got off work. I felt comfortable enough to drop in, like if it was pretty late night, to drop in my uniform and not feel like super out of place. Like, I mean, I stuck out like a sore thumb, but like I knew all the bartenders and shit. Mm-hmm. So like they're just like, oh, Steve's just fucking was probably drinking at the American Legion. That's why he's still in his uniform. And he's just on his way home. So he started getting one more beer at Brown's before he goes home.
Terrible, just terrible.
I've lived a good life, man.
Yeah. Well, yeah, me too.
I cannot complain. And I'll tell you what,
okay.
Go ahead, please.
I was going to say we ended up staying out till 1, or probably like 1:15, because, kids are crazy and we're stupid for following after them.
You're not stupid.
And then
live vicariously through them.
Oh man, yeah. And then Sunday was just stupid relaxed. And then today we found out that my wife got fired.
Yeah, that's a real fucking
Yeah,
bummer,
it's a
man.
big bummer, man. Which actually prompted me to
You
want
hated
to
that
talk.
place.
She did, yeah. But it prompted me to want to
Yeah,
talk
and
about
that
that sort of
prompted
shit.
today's episode. And part of the reason that I was at your place stopping through Fresno on my way south, and part of the reason why my internet is so choppy, and also part of the reason why my background is nothing but desert, is I am in Blythe, California, which interestingly enough is not, it's in southeastern California. Interestingly enough, it is not in the Mojave Desert, which is the desert where Death Valley is, which is like 100 miles north, 120 miles north, but we're technically in the Sonora Desert, which is most of Arizona and then like parts of New Mexico. The Sonoran Desert is really what the desert Southwest is.
So when everyone thinks of all the cactuses and stuff, that's it.
Yeah,
Wile E.
I think so.
Coyote.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because the northern desert part is usually called Basin and Range, or the Great Basin.
Yeah.
And the Sonoran Desert is below that.
Okay.
And so it's the western part of the Sonoran Desert. It's in California. I am in the Palo Verde Valley, which is the lower Colorado River. It's basically from Lake Havasu to Yuma, essentially. I mean, not quite. There's a contained valley along the lower Colorado River in the United States. Applied this community on that, and there's irrigation ditches fucking everywhere. Because for whatever reason we determined like it's really important to invest that much energy and resources into having like agriculture here. Although I do admit I've been wanting to pop by a couple places that are growing date palms, which are fucking desert fruit.
Right. Yeah.
Do you think that if properly done, you could absolutely come to a place like this, especially where you have access to some irrigation water? You could use a lot less water while producing a lot more high value crops. Instead of growing alfalfa,
right,
you can grow dates and pomegranates and even some citrus, depending on how you integrate it into your system with your urban landscape, right? You can use a lot of wastewater and other things like that. If you collectively managed water and agriculture and urban/social aspects of human existence, if you managed it all together, this fucking place could be amazing. And a lot of it is Indian reservations. There's the Colorado River Indian Reservation. Is basically cross the river into Arizona, and then head north like 10 miles, and then you're in the reservation, and it extends the rest of the length of the lower Colorado all the way up to the Palo Verde Valley, all the way up to basically like Parker area, Parker Dam, and Lake Havasu and shit, where you transition into the Basin and Range.
Right.
But it's very beautiful. I finally finished fucking putting my scope mount on my rifle and mounting my rifle, and mounting my scope on my rifle, and I'm excited. I called the BLM today, and during business hours they did not respond, but I went through the voice prompt. There's no fire restrictions. I'm just going to operate on their GIS.
Right.
And be like, on your GIS it says, and I'm taking screenshots, right? I'm scrolling around looking for spots.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go shooting, I think, sometime soon.
Yeah.
And today we're talking about jobs. I'm out here working. Rachel lost her job. That's shitty. On our thumbnail is a sign that was posted at a diner here, and we can talk about that a little bit as the show goes on. But since you produced, my friends, take it away.
Oh, I produced very little. I just, started thinking and figured that we could probably make at least a half an hour show out of it. And we're already 15 minutes in. Succeed.
We can bullshit for a fucking hour,
Well, I mean, I was just thinking about it because she was in an industry where it's full of independent contractors. It has been full of independent contractors for decades at this point. And now you got companies. There's a downturn in the industry that was caused by the increased interest rates from the Fed. Those are going down soon, so hopefully we'll see an increase in business soon. But as soon as it went down, a whole bunch of real estate inspectors got really, really desperate for work. And sure shit, a company popped up and said, hey, we'll train you if you're not trained. We'll take you on if you are, and we'll do a split with you, taking some of your money. Seems good on the surface, but then, of course, as time goes on, it's like, well, that split is really starting to hurt me, and I feel like I'm not allowed to get the wages I want. And I'm basically stuck working for you, and it really is just a step in getting it to where it's an entirely waged job. Instead of saying, oh, like you make a percentage of whatever you can bring in. Nope, it's suddenly you make $25 an hour if you're lucky, and this is like certificated work, licensed. You got to have a degree and all that crap. So it's like you're basically, taking one of the few remaining jobs that you can actually be like an independent person. You make your own hours, whatever you choose to make them out of, and get ahead in life. And we can already see places where it's happened. If you look at, places like Roto-Rooter, you got a whole bunch of people who could be independent plumbers who are now working for a wage. And it sucks. And it's really hard to go back, once that gets started. Car mechanics, working for Meineke or any of these, other companies that we have out there.
And West Schwab or whatever.
Yeah. For people to do tires, just anywhere where it used to be skilled labor, where like that skill, demanded a high wage. It's like, nah, instead we're just going to pay you by the hour, and you're going to deal with it because we basically, ran you out of business.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
Without either of us, I suspect, having really truly investigated this, I always tend to place this within a general process of like a monopolization, right? Like basically just like consolidation. That's
a great term.
The true drive of capital is not profit. It is absolute total fucking control and ownership over everything by a single end. It's autocracy. Like the end game of fucking capitalism is fucking autocracy.
Well, I mean, it made me think of how the British, the term escapes me, but like when they fenced everything in.
Enclosures, yeah.
Enclosure, yeah. They basically said like, hey, all of this is ours, and now you have to come in here and work for us at very low wages. And it's a very similar thing, where we're just like pulling up all these people that are desperate, getting them to work for very little. That takes work away from the people that are actually independent and used to making a good wage, forces them to take lower wages, and you end up with the inshitification of everything. Not my word. Not my word. That already exists, but it's a good word. Everything's becoming.
I'm sure it does. Yeah.
Right.
Like how much of that though do you think is? Oh, you did.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thanks, Rachel.
Thank you, wife.
So how much of that is monopoly? Do you think is monopoly, or that tendency that towards monopoly, versus how much is it? Is it just regulation, or is there an interplay? Because some people would be like, well, there's fewer independent contractors because insurance is expensive. By the way, I don't think requiring insurance is an unnecessary burden, right? And so then when you're like, well, insurance is expensive, well,
it's not that expensive.
That's the insurance industry.
Like I'm the one who bought it, last time. It's not that expensive, compared to what
I mean, if you're a mechanic, though, it could be, or if you're a plumber, like you have to usually be bonded and all that other shit. Right. So would you think that it's simply like we've made it too expensive to be above ground and independent? But then you also don't see a lot of below ground independent people, do you?
You might see general contractors. I think that's one place where they can continue to exist because like a lot of their work is not it's not super vital that it is, regulated. Obviously, if you're doing electrical work, that should be heavily regulated. But, if you're putting in some shelves or something like that, that's not something that really needs to be regulated. So I think that is one of the last bastions of under the table skilled labor is stuff where nobody dies if it's done wrong. Like wiping your own ass.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, you could argue that most plumbing you can't do so wrong that it kills people immediately. Like,
True.
Could you create the conditions for disease where it could be problematic long term?
Yeah.
Sure. But if you fuck up right now and someone calls you in a week and says, hey, something's wrong, you could probably avoid death. Electrical, I understand, because I know people who've had their houses burned down from fucking shoddy electrical work.
Yeah.
Etc. But I don't know. There's always a counter argument, right? And we're just it's inevitable because of capitalism, and then other people are like, no, it's not capitalism. It's capitalism is the independent contractor, which is not the definition we're using. No, that's the fantasy libertarian version of capitalism.
Yeah, you have no capital as an independent contractor. You literally live off the sweat of your own back.
May I offer a counterpoint?
Oh, you may.
The guy we had come do well work.
Okay.
He took a long time to get independence, and I hope he's still doing well work. To get his license and his bonding and all that other shit. He did better work than the larger firms. Right? It took him a long time to get there, but I imagine once he had all that set up, he'd be able to provide a good living. Another thing, not necessarily related to over-regulation of industry, but just broadly bureaucracy, is fucking payroll and all that other shit. If you're independent and you have a crew, you hire a crew to help you do stuff. Now you're hiring out additional people to do your books and everything else because as it scales, there's an economy of scale. So those are the three things.
Yeah, and
is it a tendency by it? Sorry, go ahead, my friend.
I was going to say, and that is the push of capitalism, is the fact that everything gets cheaper when you are bigger. Obviously, not everything, but most things. And then I was also going to say,
okay.
Yeah, and I was also going to say, that money has inertia. I think that's very recognizable. When you have enough money to basically do the Amazon effect, where you just reach out, grab in a whole bunch of things, start selling them at a loss until your competition can't survive anymore, and then you raise the prices afterwards. That seems to be prevalent everywhere, and this is an exceptional case. It was an industry where there was, for most people, not a lot of work, not able to survive on that job alone. And so the pull is strong, and it is very hard to get out of the orbit once you're in it, because you've just become accustomed to it. And a lot of people don't even think about it anymore. And some people even drink the Kool-Aid. This person provided me with a job when I needed it most. It's they took advantage of your labor when they needed it most.
When they needed it.
You got to flip that script around,
Yeah, which brings me to the thumbnail image, which is if you go on Google and type in this business name and you're looking at all the reviews and the overview information and all that stuff. I tend to use that every time I search for a restaurant, and then part of the search results is Yelp. It's you can't see the fucking review for the restaurant unless you download the app, and part of downloading the app is submitting to all of this surveillance, right? And or data collection, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm well, fuck that. And so I just operate on Google because Google's collecting all my data anyway. For real. Sadly, due to government handouts, no one wants to work anymore. Therefore, we are short-staffed. Please be patient with the staff that
did bother to show up is the most likely ending
the
from the other signs that I've seen.
Want to work. I actually brought this up to my coworker because let me explain some of my coworkers. Okay. Not a bad company, not bad individuals. it's really a challenge because I am significantly younger by like 25 or 30 years for most of them.
Gee.
So
Man.
easily more generational.
Yeah.
Right. Or different generations.
Oh, like
there are no young
one and a half
person.
generations.
Yeah, exactly. Or almost 2 generations.
Almost 2, yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm pretty sure some of them are baby boomers.
Some of them could be your grandpa.
Stretch, the boss, the owner of the company,
Yeah.
said he turns 75 early next year. So he's not quite my grandpa. My grandpa is about 6 years older.
Yeah, but close.
So 7, maybe not quite 10 years older. I don't know. He's in his early to mid 80s.
Right.
That's why I'm going to go see him, because I'm pretty sure he's not going to make it that much longer. Watch this fucking... He's still kicking it at like 102. And he's still like pretending like he speaks Spanish. Motherfucker lived in Southern California his whole life, and he just like spits out this shit that he knows isn't Spanish, but he pretends it's Spanish.
Hola, ¿cómo está?
No, he doesn't even do that. I mean, he sometimes says Spanish words.
I really want to hear someone do the, like the rich person voice, where they're just, oh, yes, it turns out I'm quite wealthy, but speak Spanish when they're doing it. Like, that'd be a fun accent. Hola, ¿cómo está?
Sounds very like bed howls or whatever on Gilligan's Island. Yeah, exactly. Talking about. Anyway, so let's try and bring it back. Actually, we can wander a little bit. It's only 9:30.
Yeah, it's fine.
So but I mean, this is a sign at a restaurant here. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, okay. No. I've interrupted too many times. You go ahead. I apologize.
Sadly, due to government handouts, no one wants to work anymore. No one wants to work anymore. Well, as we've discussed here, like meaningful employment or having a function. It doesn't matter what your compensation is. Meaningful work, even for the retiree, right?
Yeah.
That people retire and they struggle because they're used to having something to do, right? So like meaningful work is like inherent within all of us. Like we all need something to do that contributes to a social good.
Oh, you underestimate me, sir. I need no such thing. Give me video games and I shall be fine.
That's not necessarily true, because you enjoy Wikipedia, and as I'm doing, I've been doing a lot of Google reviews since I've been here, because I have not a lot to do, and so I'm just and there's a lot of things that are posted that I'm like, they're closed. That business is closed, and nothing's been updated here because
Google is resistant to changing anything as well. So like you can send pictures of like, oh yeah, here's the empty storefront, and they don't care. A word that I think is almost more important than wants is anymore. As though any of us ever really wanted to do the jobs that this business owner is complaining about. And, I say that and I immediately know that it's false, because like my wife really liked serving coffee. She really likes serving food and stuff like that. It's just never a wage that you can survive on. And so you would have to really, really just like doing that and be willing to accept, poverty wages, more or less. Because, you got people that love doing shit that I'm just like, why would you ever want to do that? And they're like, I don't know. It brings me
I know
joy.
the perfect job for you.
What's that?
In fact,
what's that?
You would be a daytime bartender.
I've also talked about
a fucking TV with an Xbox or whatever.
Yeah.
Or computer or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you would just fucking hit pause and serve drinks and bullshit with people.
I was going to say, we've actually talked about opening a bar, because I do love talking to people. And also...
And we do love drinking.
And a convenience store.
Put our favorite things together.
Or a convenience store. I would do well.
Oh, you want to do the clerk thing?
Yeah, man. No, man. I'd be fucking Norm from the bottle shop.
Nice.
Us being there, and be like, I want to tell you stories about myself, and I want to listen to your stories. We'll compare notes. tell me about your life. Like people come in and you're like, hey, I know you. I just want to work at the Cheers bar, I guess. Basically.
So let's examine this sentence a bit more.
Yeah.
Sadly, like, oh, it's against our control. When it's like, you set the wages.
Yeah.
Like, let's not forget that single fucking word is obscuring this mountain of labor theft by paying people the minimum that you're allowed to pay them by law, despite the value they create for you as a business owner.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? Due to government handouts. What handouts?
They are referring to the, I think, in total,
$150 of the fucking food stamps.
$4,200 in direct checks if you were lucky, and then several $100s in food assistance. Basically, if you had a child who was in school, you got like $400 a semester or something like that. Maybe only $300. It wasn't a whole lot.
Value.
It added up.
That's the value of the lunches, but that doesn't come to the people.
No, it doesn't. And the thing is this money was, supposed to last for basically like 2.5 to 3 years, apparently. And so, due to government handouts. And I don't know when the picture was taken exactly. I think in the original that you gave me, it said it was a year ago, but with the way that Google does things, it could be all the way up to about 18 months. And so this is pretty recent. And it's like, no government handout stopped someone from wanting to work for you at that point. The government handouts were gone almost immediately because nobody could work and they still had to pay their landlords or they still had to pay their mortgage. So it's got nothing to do with handouts. It's sadly due to me not paying people enough and probably generally being a prick. No one wants to work for me anymore.
Precisely, because like your girlfriend, my girlfriend also lost her job recently. Through no fault of her own.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I mentioned there's a reason I mentioned these. I've heard an N-word already. I've heard a lot of other things. I've heard a lot of other things too. It's okay. I feel like I'm respected enough that now I can fucking drop little pieces of truth. And not that I'm going to change them because it's really a cultural. It's really a fucking mob mentality.
Oh, it is. Yeah, and that's why you have to disrupt the mob.
People that they want to identify with believe a particular way, and so they're going to believe a particular way.
Yeah,
because they believe that the people they identify with believe that.
Yeah, and
that's how they manufacture. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, all we can do, people who disagree with them, is just not let them think that we are another member of their mob. We have to challenge their expectations of, because remember, like most of these people are living in little bubbles. They don't get feedback, they don't get anything like that. And so if you're just like, oh, they say the N-word and you're like, oh, what the fuck? Or, if they start talking about, welfare queens, you just got to be like, actually research has shown that is not an effect that is real. I'll point out like 3 examples of how it is fake. Yeah. And so just don't let them think that they can be comfortable around you is all you can really do.
Yeah, I actually, and part of the reason I brought that up is because I brought this specific sign that we're talking about up. And I was like, oh yeah, I saw on Google Maps that Steaks and Cakes has this sign up, posted somewhere near the door, right? Like, hey, we're short-staffed, but instead of just saying, hey, we're short-staffed, be patient, thank you for being patient, we're short-staffed, they're like, government handouts is the problem.
Yeah.
And I said to him, I was like, someone clearly who's like super old and super conservative, and like, yeah, because I think he's like in his late 60s or early 70s, and very conservative or whatever. And I just told him, I was like, well, I did a quick search, right, for like, and this place is not desirable to live or anything like that.
Right.
And so you might argue it's fairly cheap to live here. One of the reasons it's not very desirable is because like this is one of the hottest places on the fucking planet.
Not
It's
a lot
like
of services.
no, like almost nothing, and everything's corporate. It's like, do you want to eat fast food when you want to go out to eat? Because otherwise, you got like 5 or 6 options,
Yeah.
or whatever else, right? And there's nothing to it, dude. The town is like maybe like a mile and a half long, and then like 5 blocks wide.
And probably a food
It's just
desert too.
situated around the highway. It's a food desert for sure. There are a couple grocery stores, and
Well,
it is along the interstate, so they do get access to some stuff, right? But my point being is that like even being a fairly inexpensive place because it's more or less inhospitable for like 4 or 5 months a year, like 800 square foot 2 bedroom 1 bathroom apartment is renting for just shy of $1,000. And
yeah.
then I did the math that the steaks and cakes is probably hiring at minimum wage. Because when they say people don't want to work, be patient with the ones who did. That's like, like middle management. Like, instead of giving you a raise for all your good work, we're going to throw you a pizza party, right? Like that whole meme
They
or
did that
whatever.
for us. I don't work there anymore.
All the time, right?
Yeah.
Like, but it's almost become a meme where they're like, instead of like improving your working conditions, giving you a little more stability in like how we schedule you, and then also maybe paying you like a bonus or something for good performance, we're gonna fucking spend $150 on fucking pizza, and you're supposed to be like, yay, right?
At my previous job, not my most recent one, but the previous one, we enacted changes on our own, not prompted by anyone. Just we saw inefficiencies and decided to do something about it, and saved $32,000 a year. And basically, like they were like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna throw you a pizza party," and I just did the quick math, and I was like, "No, you need to buy or throw us a pizza party every single workday of every single year, and you'll still have $18,000 in profit in like cost savings, basically at the end of every year if you do that." And it doesn't always have to be pizza. Pizza's pretty expensive and bad for you, but like they basically could have fed us lunch every single day of every single year and still come out ahead forever. But no, it's a one-time thing, and then after that, where does all the money go? Into the pockets of people that didn't work for it.
People who didn't work for it. Yeah, so I need to step away for just a moment.
Yeah.
But I do think it's fucking ridiculous because there were no handouts. And I don't like the idea that no one wants to work anymore. I think that people are just fucking fed up with bullshit work. And especially people are not just fed up with bullshit work from like a philosophical perspective, but they simply can't live on the wage you're offering them.
Right. Yeah.
And like, so you're like, and the other thing is, you know what? Why don't you rant? I'm going to rant when I get back, when I have fucking the capacity to sit.
All right. I'll rant for a sec. Let's see. So yeah, while you were talking, I was just thinking about it, and I'm like, basically what this first part of the sign says is, here's this whole story about why it's not our fault. And this is the battle cry of a lot of people on the conservative and right-wing side. Is like, there's all these things going on and they're not your fault. If you're a politician, you want to make sure that all your people underneath know that this all happened through no fault of your own. It's definitely brown people or something along those lines. Something where it's not the bosses and it's not your fault. So let's point off and blame it on somebody else. And this sign reflects that mentality. Like, you can almost be assured that the person who made this sign is a conservative person. And this was kind of like the pandemic actually served as a pretty good barometer, I guess, for like where to take your money and what businesses to avoid. And, if you see a business in the future made by the same person, their business practices don't change from business to business. They just serve different food or provide different products. So for example, around here, we had a business that came into being around the beginning of the pandemic. They serve chicken. A lot of places do.
I like chicken.
I've never had theirs. I've had
With
other
the
places.
chicken, you big lip bitch.
What's that?
Oh, nothing.
Oh, I was going to say I've never had their chicken. I've had chicken at other places that didn't post, ridiculous signs like this during the pandemic. But I saw this on their sign and I said, well, I'll just never go there. And and Rachel went ahead and like looked up a whole bunch of information, and she's drilled down to who owned the business and just put his name on a list. And so now there's another business that's opening up, and she was describing it, and I was like, oh, that sounds really good, but I could tell by the way she was saying it. I'm like, oh, there's a but here. And at the end of it, and she's like, oh, but it's
owned by that piece of shit.
Yeah. Like, oh, but it's owned by so and so. And it's like, fuck. That sounded like a really good restaurant, but oh well, gotta vote.
So that kind of almost brings, and that almost brings us full circle here, because it's about is being self-employed a fantasy, right? Like,
is it tenable?
Is it what?
Tenable?
Yes, indeed. Is it tenable?
Yeah.
And I think the reality is that there is an economy of scale available to larger firms, and that tendency, right? So those are the three things, right? In capitalism, there is an absolute tendency towards monopoly.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And like a kind of like a pressure or tension, focusing the efforts of the system towards monopoly and benefit of the absolute few, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Then you potentially do have situations and or examples across various different industries where you could say like, hey, government regulation makes this more difficult for an independent person.
Yeah.
Sometimes those regulations are put in place with negotiation between large firm and politician, right? And kind of like cannabis, right? Like when they legalized fucking cannabis.
Yep.
And we should probably do a deeper investigation into that for maybe another Monday show in the not too distant future, because I've heard a lot of like the way that the law is structured, a lot of those firms wound up just being like kind of like Bankman Fried or Elizabeth Holmes or any of those other operations where they raised a shit ton of fucking capital, like tens or hundreds of millions of dollars, and then went bankrupt hella quick. And so basically it was a get rich quick scheme for like a few dozen people that were well connected, right? What a fucking grift, bro. Like, and I knew that shit was going to happen. So you do also have you have the tendency towards monopoly, and you do also have like potentially overregulation. And then what was the third one?
I don't remember.
Macroeconomic factors, right? Like you just kind of are at the whim of some of that hurts, right? Like, and if you have a bunch of assets and you're a larger firm and you could just lay people off again, right? Like they can afford to do that. Where if you're an independent contractor and you lose your source of income, like now you're again searching for the Roto-Rooter or whatever, right? Because then at least they're going to give you work. Yeah. Even if you're going to get paid a fraction of what you're worth.
Yeah, you're not homeless. And there's that drive in capitalism to just avoid homelessness. Because we all have the choice to work or to die.
Yeah, there's a basic biological drive, I think. Right? And capitalism exploits that by making it almost impossible to fucking subsist without the system. I mean, not almost impossible. It is impossible.
Oh, it spreads itself by force.
Unless you're like the fucking handful of tribal peoples in Africa and South America. And even then, they're connected to market economies.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's all of that. And then really to me, the takeaway is not to be independent contractors, but to have democratic firms. Yes. Is to have that medium-sized firm that benefits from economy of scale, but organize it democratically, where the objective is not to enrich a single individual, the owner, right? But to run a viable and financially sustainable organization for the benefit of all the employees.
Yes, and we've
And
definitely
that's
had
what
an episode about
socialism is to me. That's
Yeah.
fucking socialism.
Yeah.
Like, can we manage our workplaces, please?
Yeah, and I mean, like, there are companies that have found ways to exist within capitalism with that business model, and it's just, you know, generally employee owned, you know, worker communes that exist despite capitalism, not, you know, because of it, and are considered strange by most, you know, like any sort of business where the brand new employee has even a little say on the way things go is generally viewed as weird, you know. But
Yeah.
what is so interesting is when you own a business and you know, hire new people, they often offer the newest ideas that can save you the most money. So there's a bit of a disconnect, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's almost a perfect segue to something I wanted to say again about that time to conclude on that.
Mm-hmm.
Is it something that I've learned with my partner being in the restaurant industry?
Mm-hmm.
Is that one of the things? Not only are you unwilling to pay what it, because if you offered minimum wage but 40 hours a week plus occasional overtime,
Mm-hmm.
like someone could probably subsist in this area on that with a 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment for $1,000.
That's
Right?
lucky.
Yeah, but you would be running on a very thin margin, and you would be paycheck to paycheck, and you'd be working full time, so you'd be exhausted and paycheck to paycheck.
Yep.
So it's not a happy existence.
No, and you're
And I think we all deserve a happy existence, but I think at the same time, you could survive. But the thing is that, and this is what I was telling the crabby conservative guy I work with, is I was like, and you know, I have a pretty personal experience having a partner who's been in the restaurant industry her whole life. And not only are they unwilling to commit to giving you full time, but they'll just straight up be like, oh, I have to cut your hours to make sure that I get paid enough.
right.
And so they'll just cut your hours by 5 hours or 10 hours or 15. Right? And you're like,
Yep.
I have bills to pay.
I have to live.
And at what you pay me, I can't pay those bills unless you give me X number of hours. And then that employer is under zero obligation, not only to guarantee you a certain number of hours so you can have some financial stability in your own life.
Oh, yeah.
But they're also fucking not obligated to give you any warning, just as our partners found out in the last few weeks each. Is that you could give yourself to them and be like, oh, yeah, you need someone to pick up a slot when I said I was unavailable? Sure, I'll make myself available to do more work. And they're like, yeah, but we paid you for that work. So, like, you made yourself available to get paid. Like, not as some kind of, like, they don't even have a concept of you working for the betterment of the organization. And, you know, my partner, like, is always offering suggestions, like you were mentioning, like all these cost-saving measures, constantly doing that.
Yeah.
And then it's rewarded with, I'm just not seeing a need for you for the next 2 months, so you're fired.
Yeah.
No warning. Doesn't allow any opportunity for her to fucking save money and prepare, right? Not only just like start trying to line up another job, but also like preparing a financial cushion.
Isn't
because
that
like
also not technically unemployment, since you're still on the books and you could still be given work at any given time? Like,
no, they fire.
Oh,
and if you cut like unemployment, you can apply for unemployment for lost hours too.
Okay, good.
You don't have to be fired.
I've never
cut your hours,
applied for it, so I have no idea how it works.
Oh, you should have applied for it after you stopped your job.
No, I quit the last one. So, yeah, not much you can do about that one. No, the only time I ever had it was getting out of the Navy, or I definitely could have done that one. Every other time I was like either leaving for a better job or quit because the job was just so bad.
Yeah. Well, shit, man. I think that I think that the real solution here is to figure out how to fucking run a business and as a fucking cooperative.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the bar business, bro.
I want to give people beer. And
Not just because It's Always Sunny seems so much fun. Because it is. It's like we own a bar and we just get drunk together all the time. And if the bar makes money, great.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Right. I think it's Rachel's great grandparents sounded like they basically had that business model going on, you know, where they're like, oh, yeah, we live in a small town. We got a bar where we drink at. And sometimes there's a profit. But ultimately, we end up paying less for booze than we normally would. I should watch that show. I've never seen it.
It's Always Sunny?
Yeah.
Oh, bro.
I hear a lot of good stuff. I saw the great one where, who's the guy with the beard? Not Charlie Day or whatever his name is.
Not Charlie Day?
Yeah.
It's Mac, Charlie, Dennis. You're probably thinking of Mac. Dennis is like Pretty Boy.
I saw the scene where he
and then
did
it's Sweet D and it's Frank.
Pretty sure it's
Frank
Mac.
It's probably Mac.
Yeah, but I saw the scene where he did the dance routine, and it was just like that was some pretty good acting.
Oh, the dance off?
Yeah.
Yeah, they hosted a fucking contest, but then wanted to win it, so they didn't have to pay anybody.
Oh no. I'm thinking of the one where he did like on stage, like interpretive dance, with a partner.
Oh.
Yeah.
No, I was thinking of like I think it's season 1 or season 2. They do like a dance off.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And then they offer a bunch of prize money, and then realize they don't want to pay out all the prize money, so then they're trying really hard to win it, so they don't have to pay it.
Cheap. Fuckers.
That's before they brought in Danny DeVito as Frank.
Wow, that's really early on.
And dude, trust me, I am not a big It's Always Sunny person.
Mm-hmm.
I think the first 2 seasons, especially, there's like a lot of like teeth gritted kind of cringe. You're like, oh, this is bad. This didn't age well. Like they say some really, really racy shit.
Yeah.
And they pull some really racy stunts. I mean, there's a character in the broad universe of It's Always Sunny who they always teased when he was in high school, and then he became a Catholic priest, and then Sweet D, like, he had a crush on her when he was in high school, and then she kind of seduced him and got him hooked on fucking crack, because, like, one of them was doing, I think one of them was, like, thinking about being, like, a crack dealer as, like, gig work. And so they got this fucking Catholic priest to stop being a priest and become a crackhead. And then, like, he surfaces, like, 2 seasons later just as a crack junkie. It's fucked up, dude. Wow. This show's fucked up. But it's also kind of funny. And it's super low budget. It's a lot of kind of fun. But
oh, man.
All right, man. Play that sweet, sweet fucking...
Sweet. Gruber. Baby Gruber. The Gruber baby.
Baby Gruber baby.
Gerber baby. There you go.
Grogu baby.
Pull it up.
Grogu baby.
The Grogu
Why do
baby.
you have a short of someone cleaning hooves?
Shorts, man. Shorts. They're everywhere.
I appreciate some good hook fucking cleaning.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely right up there with any sort of power washing. There we go. It's definitely up there with any sort of power washing. I can appreciate anything where someone
power washing or the mowing and edging,
really clean shit. Yeah. You know, it's very.
You go to a yard where you can't even see there's a sidewalk and a driveway.
Like it's really funny.
It's all overgrown.
Like it almost like ties to this basic human need to just raise a middle finger to the concept of entropy. You know, we're like, shit, you know, like everything kind of degrades around us. You know what? Fuck that. I'm gonna trim those hedges. I'm gonna fucking do some edging. I'm gonna clean the dirt and moss off of that concrete so it can last a little bit longer. You know, like something in us is just like, fuck entropy. That's some bullshit.
I think for a lot of people, right? But then you could have you could have a smart design to it, right? And you could design it in such a way that you don't have to do work, but it's also oriented towards something better.
Yeah.
Rather than just fighting Like I do think that it's
staving
not
off
just
death,
us.
really. It's just like, well, everything degrades, but if I can keep this one part looking good, I've told death to fucking slag off for one more day.
Yeah, I think in the Western mindset, sure.
Yeah.
And I think that's why, like, approaching it ecologically, you're like, well, I'm just going to facilitate the cycle of life because birth and death are like part of the cycle, rather than I'm going to try and like remake this thing so it doesn't die.
Yeah.
It's a very kind of like linear versus circular thinking stuff.
Yes, true.
And one of the things is that our current fucking employment landscape is based on linear thinking.
Oh yeah.
And not on how do we sustain ourselves long term and meet changes in taste and macroeconomic trends, etc. And instead, it's very short-sighted. It's very selfish. It's very oriented towards a monopoly. And then we all get stuck in the middle and get fucked because we're not the owners.
Yeah, we don't have the robot.
And they want us to become owners, but we're going to resist. And instead of becoming owners and capitalists, we will become owner partners instead of owner capitalists. And we will become part of the democratized future.
Workers of the world.
Unite.
Workers of the world.
This has been With Thunder's Applause, the podcast where two friends get together and talk about random ass shit. Thanks for hanging out with us on Shooting the Poodoo episode 40, as we just kind of generally discuss labor woes and relation to broader trends in history. And we like to remind you here at With Thunder's Applause that when liberty dies, it usually dies in the workplace and with Thunder's Applause.
Y'all have a good week. See you Thursday.
Bye.
Bye.
Tell us Grogu Thursday.
Send us messages.